Meeting's called to order. First thing we do is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I have my flag. I'll rise for the salute.
The recording has started.
Of the United States.
United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A moment of silence to remember all of our first responders.
Hey guys, Rob Cinto. I'm joining by phone.
Okay, I'll take a moment of silence for our first responders that we've lost in the last year. Okay, approval of the minutes from the May 15th, May 14th meeting.
I move approval.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
Do we have Jude on board taking minutes, or do we know who somebody's taking?
Yes, Jude is on, let me see if I'm not sure if she's muted.
Okay, as long as we know we've got.
Okay.
I'm here, Karen.
Okay, thank you. Hey, Jude.
Do we have Bob someplace?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm on the phone. I have a.
You're on the phone. All right. Making sure. Chairman's report. I want to commend our department for doing a wonderful job over the last couple of weeks, and the chief, the way they did it. And I want to make a point that I've talked to Commissioner Cinto about helping the chief find an alternative location in the Southport area for one of his dreams. Is that's like finding a maintenance division and the Westport Southport fire stations. So, Chief, talk to him. Bob will work with you as soon as you get a chance, and do that.
Okay.
Anything else to say?
Commissioner, you're breaking up. Getting every other word.
You're getting every other word?
I don't know if anybody else is having
Yes,
audio.
correct. Very difficult.
Difficult?
Mr. Chairman, there's also a lot of background noise, and if everybody could just mute, except for the person talking, that clears up a lot of the background noise.
That you? No, that me moving just to see who was not. Okay. No, he's muted. Harry's muted. Get on mute.
Talk to Chief McCarthy about working on a project that's dear to his heart. Bob Cinto has agreed to facilitate that from his end, and the chief is ready to go with that. Bob, did you get that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Look forward to it.
Anything for me from anybody? No? All right. Chief's monthly report. Go ahead, Chief.
All right. First, the topic for the month of June, although our monthly topics have really been scrambled as a result of all of the attention that we have been placing on COVID-19 and our response there. But just for all of the commissioners, especially the newer ones, we approach firefighter safety as our primary responsibility in the administration of the department. And, there are a number of ways that we approach firefighter safety. We try to embed it into the culture. For those of you who've been around for a while know that there certainly was a macho attitude towards the work, it being the most dangerous job in the country, and you get hurt, it's a badge of honor, and it has taken quite some time to change that culture. And many people have been working for a couple of decades. As you may recall, we spent the first portion of every meeting after the pledge reading the names of firefighters who died in the line of duty. And we're sharing that information internally with the membership and looking at the cause of death. And in many cases, those were preventable deaths. We are now losing more firefighters to preventable injuries and illnesses than we are to entrapment or burns. So we have spent, as an industry and certainly as a department, changing the culture, embedding firefighter safety in everything that we do. That started in the mid-90s with annual physicals for firefighters as a mandatory requirement, and all of our firefighters get an annual physical. It's a fitness for duty physical. The union has even taken that further and negotiated additional screenings that go above and beyond the NFPA, National Fire Protection Association requirements. So those annual physicals are an important part of identifying underlying medical conditions that need to be addressed, and firefighters are encouraged to work with their own personal physician to address those underlying conditions. Many firefighters didn't know they had high cholesterol until their first fire department physical, or that they had diabetes or other medical conditions that required attention. So these have been very positive. In addition to that, in the late 90s and certainly currently, we work on Firefighter Fitness. As you know, there are gyms in each of our fire stations. We use much of our donations account to purchase fitness equipment for all of our firefighters. And if you walk into any fire station in Fairfield, usually towards the end of the afternoon, a majority of the on-duty staff will be working out together, and being able to be in this culture where you're working with 6 to 8 other individuals in the large houses and at least 3 in the small. You have built-in support mechanisms to encourage and participate in workouts together, and that's been very positive. So we work on those things and continue to draw attention to them. The other part of our approach is the personal protective equipment, the turnout gear, air packs, and we're fortunate that we have been able, through the budget process and with grants, a couple of years ago, we got turnout gear through a grant. We just got an SCBA grant of $130,000 from the federal government to help replace our self-contained breathing apparatus. So that is, a part of, our responsibility as a department and a town to make sure that we are providing equipment that is going to protect them, the firefighters, from what we term immediately dangerous to life and health atmospheres, high heat and toxic atmospheres. We also have spent a lot of time, and we've talked about in the commission meetings, cancer prevention and ensuring that our stations are clean, that we're exhausting our apparatus floors, diesel exhaust outside the building. And, back in the day, start up a fire truck, which was much dirtier back then, and all that diesel smoke is infiltrating all the living spaces, kitchen, bedrooms, lounges, all the furniture, and all of it is, or much of it is carcinogenic. So we have changed all that and really pay a lot of attention to how we manage our stations, exhaust atmospheres, make sure that dirty areas are segregated from clean areas, and we're not dragging dirty turnout gear into kitchens and living spaces, that it stays on the apparatus floor, and that it gets cleaned much more frequently than it ever did before. It gets soiled, embedded with smoke or flammable liquids from a car accident. We make sure that that's getting cleaned after each of those calls. And lastly, you know, our peer support team. We have a number of individuals in the department that have spent their own time and their own dime getting training for, or through the union, getting training on peer support and that mental health issue that keeps coming up for public safety employees and suicide rates, given the exposure to some of the worst conditions, you know, the loss of life through illness or injuries or accidents, making sure that firefighters are able to deal with that appropriately and have support, again, in an environment like ours. And we're fortunate, maybe even more fortunate than the police department, because we don't spend a lot of time alone in the station. There, you know, where a police officer may spend, you know, the majority of his shift or her shift working in a solitary environment without that peer support at the kitchen table or on the apparatus floor or working out or training together. We do have that, and it's a very important part of the culture here. So from firefighter safety, I just, you know, my goal in all this is to, you know, emphasize, you know, the almost daily attention that we provide towards firefighter health and safety. As I said, it's our #1 responsibility. When I swear in new firefighters, one of the comments that I make to the family is a pledge that we will do everything in our power to send them home whole and well at the end of their shift. When we swear in new officers, we make a point of their primary responsibility is to keep the firefighters under their command safe and healthy. And so it is something that we do religiously. So I wanted to provide that update. And if anybody has any questions, I'll pause before I go on to the next of the report. Hearing none, let me give you an update on COVID-19. I have to tell you that, and you may have seen it and read it in the reports that I've provided to boards and commissions, we have had an outstanding team that has worked to address the challenges of COVID-19. The first meeting occurred on January 29th here at the fire department with the health director to look forward at this emerging threat of a mysterious infection that was starting to travel across the globe. That was followed by him establishing a COVID mitigation work group on February 13th. And then shortly after that, in the first part of March, we opened up the Emergency Operations Center. First Selectman declared a state of emergency. And since that time, and now over almost 16 weeks, it has been an all-consuming effort across all departments to manage the response. Early on, the information that we were getting on the impact was thousands will get ill and hundreds will die in Fairfield. And, you know, that was the best estimate given what we're seeing coming up from New York and some of our neighboring communities. And the other guidance that we got was, if you think you've done too much, you've probably done just enough. We have worked hard to stress the concept of physical distancing, wearing masks, closing down, town halls, and protecting our employees, providing personal protective equipment, providing good information, provide screening, and when it became available, the COVID test. which we sent our new firefighter, Peter Ayub, to the New Haven test site today because he will be going back to the fire academy on Monday. And one of the requirements of the academy was every recruit returning to the academy will need a negative test for COVID. So he got that today. So this has been an extraordinary journey that we have taken. The next step, as we deal with restaurants reopening and the governor's lifting of many of the restrictions or easing many of the restrictions, one that we're dealing with right now is assisting the Board of Ed with high school graduations. You may have read in the newspaper that the high schools were desperate to have an in-person event. Both schools, worked with their parents and students and the administrations to make a determination what would be the best. They settled on a full drive-in graduation at Jennings Beach, and that will occur. It'll be set up next Monday, and right now it's scheduled for Ludlow on Tuesday night. No, Ward for Tuesday night and Ludlow for Wednesday night, with Thursday being the rain date. And our planning team from emergency management has been working closely with them. We'll have 350, 400 cars in that parking lot, over 1,000 people in those cars, all jammed in to watch graduation. High school, the students will leave the car and then a space between each car to make sure that, if you have your windows down and sitting in your car, you don't have to wear a mask. So 6 foot of separation between cars, fully projected graduation, and managed by a partnership between the Board of Ed, Public Works, Emergency Management, Police Department, Parks and Rec, the key elements to that. So we're continuing to work. Tomorrow we have a meeting, start addressing reopening ballparks, team sports, as the governor will lift those restrictions towards the end of this month. So we expect COVID to dominate our attention well into the fall. The concern is that we get through the summer and the cases are going down, and they are going down. And some days there are only one new case reported, but the potential is that, and you look at the historical record for pandemics, the second wave in many cases has been worse than the first. And there is a tremendous amount, as you all can feel, COVID fatigue. And, we want to make sure that we are, just as we do in emergency management, try not to go too far because you lose the trust of the town that you're trying to lead through this process, but make sure that you're going far enough to keep them safe. Because we may have to go back to them again and ask for some sacrifice in the fall. So it's an issue, and where the town is very lucky to have Sans Clary as the health director. Is a level-headed guy, smart, capable, dedicated, good staff that has been working this 24 hours a day for the past 16 weeks. So that's it for COVID. Are there any questions on that? If not, as you know, we're proceeding with the budget. We're closing out the 2020 budget, and we'll begin the 2021 budget. I'll leave any comments to the deputy if he has, but we're typical end-of-year activities, making sure that we are completing all of the work that we needed to do this year and getting ready for the next. I did want to give you an update on the testing process. And I sent you information this afternoon. The chairman and I spoke on the phone about, what do we do now that we can anticipate the next phase in the entry-level hiring process. The statewide process has concluded. The contractor, because they had to do all of this work, which was supposed to be in-person interviews, we did it all online using technology, and we had some challenges. They worked through all of that, and we will have a list from the contractor, a rank ordered list of the roughly 535 candidates, rank ordered by in 3 different lists. One without any major prerequisites, high school diploma, valid Connecticut driver's license. The second category is those 2 things with EMT, which is the list that we would be interested in Fairfield, and the third list is for paramedics. So we will get that EMT list next Monday, and the deputy will lead a process with members of the department, Deputy Chief Roger Case, Lieutenant John Catandella, and Firefighter Matt Strebe, along with the deputy, will interview the top candidates on that list as we get it from the contractor. We don't know right now how many we'll interview, but probably somewhere between 10 and 15, because we anticipate that the top candidates will be taken off this list pretty quickly by the hiring process for those departments that will send recruits to the academy in September. And we anticipate that we will have several vacancies that are anticipated at this point. Let me put it that way. So we will interview the top 15 and rank or top 10 to 15 and rank order that list. And as you recall, the last time we made a decision that of the 20, was it 20 that he interviewed? Somewhere 15 or 20. Not everybody made it on the list. There was a decision made that, that the top of that list received high marks from the interview panel, and others fell into category that they were not comfortable. Should we get through that list, that we would go to this next tier. The committee felt that they would not not receive a job offer. So they didn't even get put on the list. So out of this 10 to 15, we hope that we will get 8 to 10 qualified candidates who would be on that list. We will complete that process by the 26th of June. And so we give the candidates a week notice for the interviews. We do the interviews on the 24th and 25th, probably a full day on the 24th, a half day on the 25th, complete the deliberations and produce a rank ordered list for the commission on the 26th. The question, as I posed in my email today, is how would you like to proceed? If you recall, at the last cycle 2 years ago, we had the commission interview all of the candidates and then reaffirm or affirm the rank order list presented to them by the department. We can do it that way, or there is an alternative that may be of interest to you, or that you would have a representative participate or attend the interviews and participate in the scoring, and then that list gets presented to the commission without you interviewing all of the candidates. There may be others, but I see that Commissioner Ozaki has a question, so let me pause and and we can work through these issues. Do we have any donations?
One of the issues I have again, and I know other commissioners have expressed this, we're getting documents the day of and the day before meetings, and it does not give us time to review and maybe investigate different things. And I know we've discussed this many times, and, you know, it happened again tonight, and that's very upsetting to me, and I just want to go on record again. I understand there's a lot of other stuff going on. We got the COVID stuff going on, the testing stuff is coming up in between, but I just don't like getting this last minute stuff given to us. And I just want to make my point known on that, and I do have other questions, but I will yield back to the chairman.
Okay, Joe? Are you all set?
Yeah, for now, for this, but I have also other statements, but that's one of my big concerns.
Let
I
me just address, if I may, the issue of the transmittal today. I had a conversation with the chairman today about the testing process and how to proceed and how he would like to proceed. And in that conversation, we batted around some of the options, and I felt that it would be helpful to guide the conversation tonight by providing an outline of some steps for you to choose from. And clearly it was just an opportunity to make tonight's discussion more cogent. So that's the reason, that's the genesis of that email today.
Does that answer your question, Joe?
Like I said, I understand everything that's going on. I still have an issue with last minute stuff coming in. It's just very concerning to me. I like time to review things before they go out. And I know other commissioners, like I said, have expressed that before, but there's nothing I can really do about it.
Go ahead, John, Commissioner.
So are we at a point now in this discussion as to give our thoughts onto how we should proceed, or where are we procedurally in this discussion?
Chief?
That's up to the commission. I laid out some options for you to consider. I know that there was strong feelings in the last cycle that the commission wanted to meet every candidate before a decision was made on how or who was going to end up on the list and in what order. And I respect that and want to make sure that, you know, that part of the transmittal today lays out a timeline for if the commission chooses to do full in-person interviews with the resulting list from the fire department interviews, that can be done on 2 different Saturdays, either on Saturday, July 1st, Saturday or the 11th. I may have that date wrong, but
the 4th is the first Saturday.
So yeah, the 28th or the 27th or that doesn't work either.
It's the
11th. Yeah, the 11th.
Yeah.
Dorothea, you're muted.
Commissioner Bramley, go ahead.
Oh, so I don't want to have the same discussion we had 2 years ago, even though we have new commissioners on board. I actually like that there's an alternative plan. I feel very strongly that it's hard for me to be an independent-minded community representative to this commission and, you know, go and rank, you know, the preferences to have the outcome of the commission to be the same ranking as the professional staff's review. I just have some issues with that. I would rather send a representative, as was outlined, if the group could come up with consensus on that, or allow us to go in as an independent group overseeing this process. And I know we talked about this 2 years ago, but I don't think we really talked about this alternative of having a representative of the Fire Commission, but that would be my gut, unless, again, the process changes so the commission has a larger voice in the process.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Yes, I'd like to ask clarification from Commissioner Brandley, where he just said, or if all the commission participates or something. I'm not sure what you meant. It sounded like a third alternative.
Oh, no, I didn't mean to reference a third alternative. I think there's our traditional route, which is to have all of us be invited to participate in the interview process. Or B, I kind of like the idea of having a representative, unless, our voice is meant to be stronger in this process.
Can I continue, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
So I've been on this end, the police, and while last time in fact happened that we reaffirmed, I have been through other years where that's not been true, that the order has been changed or someone was actually dropped. And while having a representative and then having the full group vote may technically meet the charter language, I don't think it meets the spirit of our oversight of the department. So I would prefer to do all the interviews.
Commissioner Ozaki.
That me?
Go ahead.
Okay. I sort of echo Dorothea's comments there. And, I would, I would almost like to see us just given a, I don't want to say a blank slate, but no rankings. And see, so, we get an alphabetical list and we do our interviews and come up with a ranking. But, again, as John said, we went through this 2 years ago, and we've had 2 years to come up with a plan, and shame on this commission and me, because I was chairman the last time we went through this and not bringing this up. And we should have looked at this, right along and come up with what we are going to do. I think, the charter says, we're the ones that are supposed to be doing it. And I think that we need to be the ones and not shirk our responsibility to somebody else. I mean, that's why we're here. We're here representing the people of the town of Fairfield. So I agree with Dorothea, even though I'd like, some other changes, but I'll never get them.
Okay. Commissioner Fitzpatrick.
I think that a representative makes the most sense. I don't think this is a wise or effective expenditure of the commission's time to all meet with a number of candidates. I respect the professional's opinion, and that's where I come down on it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? We have two options before us. We have option 1 and we have option 2.
I would like to hear the other commissioners comment.
That's Mr.
Where
Commissioner
do you
Burke.
stand? Have you commented on this?
Commissioner Burke.
I'm just looking at the charter provision. I'm trying to find that. I guess it's 10.6 of the charter. Do you want to come back to me? And I'll just take it.
All right, go ahead, look it up. My opinion is that I agree with Commissioner Fitzpatrick on the thing. I think it's a waste of time. Not a waste of time, but to get involved in something that's already been done, it should be brought back to the commission very easily with a representative. I don't know how else. I like doing it that way, and I don't want to second guess the professionals that are doing the job. Joe, Commissioner Joe.
No, yeah.
I had on mute here. I take offense to, it's a waste of time. You don't want to serve on this commission and put in the time. I'm sure there's other people that would not mind at all sitting on this commission. So I take offense to that. You know, when I signed up to be on this commission, I knew it was going to take time. I knew there was going to be other meetings besides just the Thursday night. So, you know, that's part of one of the things we accepted to do.
So, this is Commissioner Cinto. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm in agreement with Harry and Fitzpatrick as well. I think it's not the best use of our time, and you know, if we have a professional's opinion, we can review that opinion and move on from there. And you know, if you want to do interviews after that, that's fine. But that's my opinion. That's just my opinion.
Commissioner John? Anybody else?
What if you let any commission members that want to sit in on the meetings do that and, you know, see what they come up with? If we adopt the plan, the new plan, as it were.
The challenge is, do we want to do it this way, or do we want to do it the other way? Last time we spent all day Saturday going through the thing.
Right.
I agree with, and I take that back, Joe. I don't mean a waste of time, but a redundancy. It's being thoroughly done. And the intent of the way I looked at it is that process has changed a lot from the days when you and I were involved. And the testing process, the interviewing, and what the people go through to get to the position is more than it was when you and I. When you and I did this thing years ago, you came on, you took the test, and you showed up, and everybody blessed you, and that was it. Now it's very involved, and the people are putting their time in to do the job. I think that to keep the commission involved in it, yes, and have a representative there, then have the names brought back to the commission, and then we can do what we want with it at that point in time.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, well, you know, I understand the process is different. Everything is different over the years, but I do have an issue of, you know, it's almost just like we're rubber stamping everything that's coming before us. And, you know, we have our own brains and our own minds. And I don't want to be, if we're going to have a commission that just rubber stamps everything that comes to us, then why bother having a commission? And it's time for a charter revision.
Commissioner Brownlee.
Could I just, to defer to Commissioner Burke, he's a lawyer, I know Bill is as well, but if you have the charter up, do you have the exact language on this? I don't have it in front of me.
Yes, I do. Subject to the provisions in this charter regarding the appointment of to appoint all positions in the department and make all appointments in the fire department shall be made on the basis of merit. So I guess that's the argument, is that the appointment.
I believe there's another section.
Okay.
If you want to keep looking.
Sure.
I used to have it all printed out. It's on my.
What are you looking for, Joe? Because I have it in front of me too.
There was something else about hiring and stuff that's in there.
We have all powers and duties confirmed on fire commissions generally by 7301 of Chapter 104 of the General Statutes, except as limited by the Charter. And that's the lead into a paragraph that says, subject to the provisions in this charter regarding appointment of the fire chief, have sole power to appoint and promote all positions in the department and all appointments and promotions in the fire department shall be made on the basis of merit. That's the exact language.
And there's nothing else further down in the charter regarding commissions. I
Fire has
remember.
its own section and police has its own section.
Commissioner Zaki, what point are you looking for?
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, but there was something else that was in the charter. And again, this is why I bring up, this is coming to us now and not a week ago where we would have had time to investigate this.
I don't think you had it a week ago. I think you got it today or yesterday.
It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
We talked about it last month.
Just, Commissioner,
Heads
I
up.
raised the issue at last month's meeting that we were headed to. Certainly, the commission was fully apprised of the process that was before them. That I explained the timing and the process. And so this should not be a surprise to anyone that we're at this point. I reiterate that in my conversation with the chairman today, I felt it would be helpful to provide some outline for the discussion tonight. If you recall, in 2018, when we went through the process, the commission interviewed all of the candidates that were on the recommended list for the fire department, from the fire department interviews. As a result of that very long Saturday, there was a motion by the commission to change the order of candidate 1 and candidate 2. And no disrespect to the commission, but there was an underlying feeling at the end of that discussion that it was just so we can have done something, that there wasn't an overriding feeling that number 1 was demonstrably, number 2 was demonstrably better than number 1. It was, there was a less compelling argument for that one change. And it was expected that, and what we represented, that all of those candidates would likely get a job offer. So that whole Saturday activity did not change the hiring process for the department. And I think that the commission was fairly satisfied with what occurred from the fire department review, that they did affirm it, that there was nothing that jumped out at them as to the commission that, we had made a mistake somewhere in the process that needed to be corrected.
Commissioner Brennan.
First, Chief, I absolutely remember you reviewing this process last month and giving us a heads up that we had plenty of time to address it early. Your email today was just a reminder of the options, as far as I'm concerned. I do take umbrage with the idea that we made that switch just to justify ourselves. And I would point out, depending on the hiring timing, there is a difference in seniority to the individuals. And Joe, I've gone through the rest of the charter and I don't think there's any other references.
Commissioner Zaki, Commissioner Fitzpatrick.
Mr. Chairman, I object to the term rubber stamping. What I'm reluctant to do is to substitute my judgment for that of the professionals. And I think perhaps Commissioner Burke has a good idea. If instead of a representative, we want to send 2 representatives, I wouldn't have any objection to that. I just think that the representative plan, and again, it's not a matter of wanting to spend the time or not spend the time. I just don't think it's an effective expenditure of our time. If we want to have 2 representatives, so be it. But I think the representative plan is a better plan.
personnel matter, so well, it doesn't constitute.
Agreed.
Anybody else? Commissioner Cinto?
I agree with everything Commissioner Fitzpatrick just said, to be quite honest with you, you know?
Okay, what do we want to do? Do we want to take this? We want to take this to a vote now, or do we want to put it off? Oh, yeah.
We can't. We got to take it to a vote. We got to make a decision tonight.
Commissioner Brennan, Bromley?
I just wanted to say that I don't want to shirk any of my responsibilities as a fire commissioner. That is not my intent. I certainly don't want to violate the charter. So I'm going to lean on Commissioner Burke for a second to see as a charter. As long as we're not doing, I think I actually see a couple of years ago, I was a bit frustrated because it did seem like we were pressured into putting in, the same plan that had been presented to us. I much prefer to send a representative at this point, as long as it's not shirking responsibility and not violating the charter.
Okay, I agree with what you just said also. It's just, you said it better than I. Commissioner Ozaki, you got anything else you want to add?
No, I said my piece. I think everybody knows how I feel. And yeah, you can call it for a vote or whatever you want to do.
Commissioner Fitzpatrick, anything?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move the commission adopt option number 2.
Your second? Second on,
I'll second it.
who's that? Bob?
Commissioner Cinto.
Yes, okay. Commissioner,
Yes,
seconded
I'll
by
second
Commissioner Cinto. All in favor?
Aye.
Well, Commissioner. Sir, Commissioner,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, there is no reason not to allow more than one. I think option 2 indicated one representative, a representative. There is no reason not to allow multiple representatives from the Board of Fire Commissioners to participate in that process. I just don't want you to be adopting a option that may preclude in its language more than one commissioner.
Okay. I understood that when we were subjecting it to a vote.
The language doesn't. You got to correct the language.
Okay. Let's change the language then. Do we want one commissioner or 2 commissioners?
Just leave it at plural.
Commissioners.
Yes.
2 commissioners?
No, plural, commissioners.
Okay, change it to commissioners. Okay.
Whoever wants to go.
All right, so now we're going to put it up to a vote again.
Bill has to build your second read of the
I
thing.
accept the amendment.
Are you making a motion again, Bill? Or are you withdrawing your motion?
I'm amending it, Mr. Chairman, to read BOFC assigns representatives to attend interviews, plural.
Second?
I'll second.
That was Commissioner Cinto, right?
Burke.
Okay. Commissioner Burke? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against?
Aye.
Aye.
Ozaki,
Can we do a roll call vote? It'll just be easier.
from this end, I'm watching the screen and I'm trying to figure out who is.
Do a roll call vote, please.
Roll call vote. Ackley, yes. Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Dorothea,
No.
Ozaki,
No.
John,
Yes.
Bill, Burke,
Yes. Aye.
Cinto, Bob.
Yes.
All right, so what do we got for votes for lists there?
5-2.
We got 3 votes in favor, all in favor with the exception of 3. Okay,
So it's a 4-3. So it passes.
4-3. Passes.
How do you come up with 4-3?
I thought it was 5-2, but okay.
I thought it was 5-2 too.
It's 5-2.
5-2 is what I thought. It's Ozaki and I are the only two. And Bill, you have a camera now.
I do.
Okay. I counted 5-2 to also, so
That's what I said, 5-2.
that's what I had on my sheet here. All right, so we're gonna go with option number 2. And we'll do it from there. And we'll bring it all back to the commission.
Right, and may I request, I'd be happy to be one of the people. I have to move some things around in schedule, but the chief update us, and I'm assuming Joe, with the information so that we're prepped for the sessions.
You're cut out, Commissioner.
We'll need the information in the packets so that we're prepped for the sessions.
So you're talking about background information, applications, that type of information. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So at this point, our plan is to interview on the 24th and 25th. We would be a all-day session, 8 to 5 on the 24th, and a cleanup day on the 25th, in order to not overwhelm a single day with multiple interviews. But we need to look at the list and see where the cutoff will be and how many total candidates. So we will keep you posted and solicit intent to participate from all of the commissioners for that time period. And quite honestly, I don't see any reason if a commissioner wanted to drop in and observe. I think it would be awkward not to participate in the full set of interviews if you are going to participate in the scoring. But if a commissioner wanted to drop in and observe, that certainly could be accommodated.
Do I have any volunteers out there that want to do this?
I'm going to do it.
You're muted, Joe. Joe's muted.
I just put in for my PTO time for those 2 days.
I'd like to at least observe some of it.
Yeah,
So
I think that's a great idea. If it's not disruptive, I'd like to as well.
So we will develop the space with a mind towards that additional commissioners may come in, sit in the back of the room, observe the process, be introduced. You'll all get a full set of information for each of the candidates prior to the interview, so that you have an opportunity to review them along with the interviewing panel. And that way that you can be fully apprised of the process. You could even suggest a line of questioning to the panel, and I mentioned the panel's name, Catandela, Case, Strebe, and Dunn. You know, if there are issues that you want to raise, you can do it through them. But we'll make sure that all of the commissioners, regardless of whether you are a participant, observer, or not, that you get a full set of information on the process.
Sounds good.
Are we all set with the testing process?
Yes.
Okay. Donations.
Donations is a $100 donation in memory of Barbara Antolini, and that came from the Marie and Teresa de Francis, and that's in your packet. And that's the only donation that I have.
Okay. So we make a we don't have to make a motion to accept that, right? No.
Yes, we do.
We do?
Wait a minute. I'm in my packet. I'm looking at a statement of a $50 donation from the Barbara Lasco
Oh, I'm sorry.
family.
Yep. It's on the back
$100 from
side of mine.
ATD. And a $50 gift certificate to Saugatuck Sweets from Carla Massaro. I'm looking at 3 of them.
Yeah.
Carla.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept the donations that are listed in our packet.
Thank you. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Well said, Commissioner Ozaki.
Even though I couldn't get to my mute button quick enough, I did have a question on the testing on what happens at that next meeting when we get together. Mr. Chairman, what do you think is going to happen at that meeting?
Which meeting is that? Our next meeting?
Our next meeting. So the commissioners go and we observe, maybe participate in the process. We then come back to discuss things in an executive session, which you're talking personnel, or do we just do everything in public session?
I think we do the whole thing in public session. And that'll come out and we'll do it that way. You got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I just had a question to the chief relative to if we do it that way, wouldn't the list become public before our meeting because it has to be in our documents and yet we haven't approved it? And so should it be that we go into executive session to receive the list and then come out of the executive session and vote to approve it?
So what I anticipated or anticipate would be that the group of 6, if there are 4 fire department members and 2 commission members, that they reach consensus and recommend just as we did the last time and presented it to the commission, that we present to the commission a rank ordered list for the commission's approval. By going through this process and making the decision to include commissioners in the interview process, and I would have the expectation that that list, that the commission, as constituted here at this meeting, would accept the recommendation of the interview panel, which includes 2 commissioners.
Chief, that's the intention, but that's not my question. My question is about when the list becomes available to the public, and it may be fine that it's held by you or whoever is going to present it at the meeting, and the only thing that appears in our agenda and the backup packet is that in fact the list is being presented to us that night.
It's not a list until you vote on it. It's not a list until the commission. It's not a list until the commission votes on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. Your point is well taken. It is to act on the recommendation of the interview panel at such time as that the the information is presented to the commission, it doesn't exist in public setting.
So we need an agenda item to do that, and we also need to agree on when we're going to meet, because we may or we don't, while we're holding a date in July, one, we don't always meet, and two, we want to do it earlier than that.
Hey, guys, excuse me for a minute.
Chief, would you need us to act on the list before July 9th?
We will have the list by the 26th of June.
Right.
That gives us one extra day after the interview process to work through any remaining issues if there are any. So anytime after the 26th, it can return to the commission for a vote.
Okay, what I'm asking is, we want to schedule a special meeting so that you have it before July 9th. I believe, I'd have to go back or ask the deputy maybe, but I think our regular schedule included a July 9th agenda, a meeting.
Yes.
But I don't know how urgent your timeline is, whether you really want to wait that long.
Sure, that certainly gives us.
Candidates, and we don't want to lose anybody if we've got somebody getting offers.
If there is, now we could do it on the 2nd, and if that is acceptable to the commission. I don't think that there is an urgency to change the July 9th date. We certainly have enough time to do what we need to do.
Okay.
Doing it early does provide more flexibility to the department, but it's not imperative. So we will, whatever is best for the commission.
Do you think it will impact our ability or that somebody else will take a job someplace else if we have an act?
I think that we will be
going on in the background.
For the full class, so that's the higher
Right.
right way.
We'll be first or close to first either way. And, you know, if candidates know that they are in the top tier in Fairfield, we have an advantage that we will attract candidates that may not want to go to a smaller department. But there are some, like Mike Beers the last time, that went back to Danbury because he had a, you know, family history in the city of Danbury. You know, those will always come up. So I'm not sure that it makes too much difference. If it works better for a commissioner's schedules to get this done on the 2nd, that certainly works for us. But if not, the 9th is an acceptable date.
If we do it on the 2nd, we'd have to have a special agenda, and that limits us to any flexibility. If we do it on the 9th, it's part of a normal meeting, and so it's a much more flexible agenda. Assuming we are going to have a quorum on the 9th, I suppose we could poll whether anybody has, that's probably a good thing to do. Our normally scheduled meeting is July 9th. Is anybody going to have a difficulty attending on July 9th so that we're relatively sure we have our quorum for that night?
July 9th was on my calendar, so I was planning on being there, if that's our normal night.
Bill?
At the moment, I'm okay.
Okay. John? You okay? You're muted, John.
Thumbs up.
Okay. Bill Burke?
I'm okay.
And Cinto? Rob?
I'm okay as well. I'm okay, thank you.
Okay. So Harry, you're back.
I'm back. So what'd you do? Get a motion?
We just agreed that the full commission meeting on July 11th is when we'll take up the list.
Okay.
July 9th.
July 9th, yes.
Right, sorry, July 9th.
Yeah, it had me there for a second because I was listening to July 9th here. All right. Are we done with the chief's report?
I hope so.
Yes, we are.
Deputy?
Hey, good evening. So I did an analysis this week, and I found that our total calls from March, April, and May were significantly different than the last 3 years. And we had a 36% drop from this year from last year's. So, you know, a lot of that makes sense. Emergency medical calls were down, I think, because people just did not want to go to the hospital. So if they weren't feeling well, they roughed it. Vehicle accidents were down, which made sense. But anyway, so it just showed. So we're going to be going back to our pre-COVID call types. We really haven't changed our call framework for the most part, except there was some minor changes that we did for code 2 calls at nursing homes, non-emergency calls like transports and things like that. We weren't going on. So so we're looking, and it seems like call rates are starting to go up a little bit more now, which as people are returning to somewhat a normal way of life. Firefighter Peter Ayub, as the chief mentioned, he's currently remoting from the TG, from the training center, and he'll be returning Monday to the Connecticut Fire Academy. A logistics update, after this week, we will have distributed 10,777 masks, simple face masks, and 547 thermometers to various eligible, essential small businesses, houses of worship, and nonprofit organizations throughout the town. It's a state program that I've mentioned to you. The state is supplying this, but we're the ones having to give it out, which is, you know, it's a lot of work for our people, but we're doing it, and it's a great public service, and the people love it when they come down to our training center to pick up the items. Good news that Marine 228 is back in service, and there's some of that grant-funded work that's being done while it's docked on the electronics. Did some things while it was in dry dock, also putting, you know, sonar sounders down on the bottom of it. But now that it's in the water, they're going to complete that. So, but we're happy because it is ready for a response, and that's our main response vehicle out on the Sound, or our major response vehicle out there. I think Norma is here, so she'll give a CERT update. If she isn't still here later, I'll come back and give that if you'd like. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Southport. Draftfield. Local 1426. Search is taken care of.
Mr. Chairman, can we go to,
I'm
can we just jump back to 1426 for a second?
Go ahead.
Chief, I have a question. Our injured firefighter or sick firefighter that's been on extended leave, how is he doing?
So he has, due to respiratory complications, he's been quarantining himself at home. He, as you recall, you extended his sick leave through this meeting, and he is currently investigating retirement options effective or concurrent with his anniversary date. So he has other accumulated time that he will use to get to that, and is working with the personnel department now to do all of the due diligence necessary to resolve his potential retirement. There is another injured firefighter that was injured 2 years ago. I have a meeting with him and his union representative on Monday to get an update on his status.
Right. I was just concerned about the one individual that, we extended it a couple times. And I just wanted to make sure that we're all still good with him, that, we make sure that we take care of him. That's all.
And quite honestly, despite having an extended absence, he really worked hard at providing value to the department, got certified as a fire inspector, worked as light duty. And as you know, we have been struggling with staffing in the fire marshal's office. He was an outstanding resource for us doing plan reviews, and we're really indebted to him for his service, and disappointed that his career will most likely end up with an early retirement, not by his own choice, but due to the circumstances.
All right. Thank you. And if you talk to him, whatever, just tell him the commission was concerned. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. And I'm sure that the union would, if they were participating, would be very thankful to the commission for all of the accommodations that you made to help us get to this point.
Commissioner? Okay. All right. Search, Chief.
Yes. Mr. Chair, may I continue now?
Yes.
Hello?
Norma, can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So CERT has continued to support 3 COVID-related town activities. We support the Operation Hope drive-through grocery service, the Bigelow bus delivery service to homebound seniors, and there's a Bigelow drive-through senior grocery pickup as well. And we've been doing this since the end of March through now and continuing through June. And CERT's put in over 1,300 volunteer hours on those activities so far.
All done?
All done.
Okay. Thank you, Norma. On behalf of the commission and everybody, would you please tell your members that we really appreciate their time and energies that they're putting into this? All right?
I sure will. Thank you. Yep.
Do we have any old business? Joe? Commissioner Ozaki?
Why does everybody always look at me?
Commissioner Brennan? Old business? Commissioner Fitzpatrick?
I have nothing.
Commissioner Bremley? John? Okay. Commissioner Burke?
No.
Commissioner Sinto?
No.
Okay. Next, new business. Looking at the new business is the chief's vacation and carryover update and approval. Chief, you want to update us on that?
As you can imagine, I've been unable, typically I'm unable to get all my vacation time in. I have 5 days by contract that can be carried over with the approval of the Board of Fire Commissioners. So I'm requesting that those 5 days be carried over into the next fiscal year.
Do I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Wasn't seconded.
I seconded it.
Okay.
Public comment. Do I hear anybody
I
from
don't
the
see
public?
I don't see any public comment on the website, on the email, unless there's somebody that wants to speak.
Okay, to hear and consider an act upon the business that shall come before the fire commission, any business. Do we have anything pending?
I have a question for the chief. And sorry, because we were jumping along so fast before. For the graduation dates or you don't have the times for that when they're going to be on the beach, do you?
So graduation on Tuesday, the parking lot will be closed at 5 p.m. All of the day use, the beachgoers will be asked to leave. The parking lot will reopen for queuing of graduates and their families beginning at 6:30, and they will queue up in the east end of the parking lot, and then at 7 o'clock will be allowed into the main parking lot. There are parking attendants that will move them to the appropriate designated parking spaces, and then at 8 o'clock the program will begin with speeches, and then by 8:30 the actual presentation of diplomas. That's the rough schedule right now.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Hey, Chief?
And just for the record, this is not open to the public. There will be one car per graduate, and so there's limited parking. We have identified roughly 475 spaces to accommodate all of the graduates and the teachers, administrators, and it will not be, there is a limit to one car per family for the high school graduates.
Chief, question. The kids get out of the car and come up and get their diplomas, or?
They will be called up by homeroom, so 23 or so graduates that share a homeroom will be called up as a group. They will stage just close to the edge of the sandcastle playground, and then will process up onto the stage, receive their diploma sleeve, and as they are doing that process, the next homeroom goes into staging with appropriate physical distancing between each, as best we can control 17-year-olds.
Thank you, Chief. Anybody else? Commissioner Brennan, I want to turn this over to you. Commissioner Brennan?
You're muted.
Yours.
Yep. I need a motion to go into executive session to discuss Chief McCarthy's contract renewal and include Chief McCarthy in the session.
So moved.
Second.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, so Bill was second. Who moved it?
John.
And moved.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Deputy, will you do the transitions for us and let us know when we can actually, when you leave, we'll start the executive session.
I will. Okay, thank you. Just bear with me, please.
Sure. Thank you for doing it.
Okay, thank you. Use host.
Dorothea, while we're transitioning, I'd like to
Session is
welcome
no longer being
Commissioner Burke
recorded.
to the commission.
Yeah, good timing, Bill. Sure. Yes. Welcome, Commissioner Book. Hopefully we get a chance to know each other.
Oops, sorry.
WebEx meeting, tab, lock meeting, okay. Turn off recording and turn on recording in FCC, which is record.
The recording has started.
And mute host, get the mute host. Oh, it's right here. Unmute host. Okay, well, it looks like we're good.
Okay.
And
I make a motion, Mr. Chair, I make a motion that Dennis McCarthy's contract as fire chief of the town of Fairfield be renewed for a period starting October 1st, 2020 and ending September 30th, 2025, under a contract between the town and the chief and subject to the approval of First Select Woman Brenda Kupchak. Need a second?
Second by John.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I think you were asked to conduct a individual polling vote.
Yes. Ready?
Who seconded, by the way, just so I can capture it?
John,
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go down the list the way I'm looking at it here. Commissioner Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Brennan,
Yes.
Commissioner Ozaki.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Bremley. John,
oh, yes.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Cinto. Commissioner Cinto.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So we have 6 in favor and 1 abstention.
Okay.
Okay? I actually kept track of that one. All right. All in favor? Aye. That's it.
Motion to adjourn appropriate?
I'm waiting. I'm looking at my highlighters here. Yes.
Okay, well, first of all, congratulations, Chief.
thank you very much.
Congratulations.
And this will get transmitted to the town staff officially by the chair once we get the minutes. But they knew it was going to happen tonight, so they already know they need to do with the contract negotiations. Then a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Who's got it?
I made it just now.
Aye.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. I want to thank everybody very
Aye.
much. Again, Commissioner Burke, I want to thank you for being here and welcome you to the commission again
Thank you.
and say goodbye. Hey, by the way, you got to remember, Allie Burke, destroyer,
Okay.
your Navy fleet.
Folks.
Who's ringing? All right, goodbye.
Thanks, commissioners.